Welcome to the No Horsing Around podcast. Zach Boyd back at it again. Guys, we talked about it all week. We talked about Sam Ehlinger, trade deadline, and I thought, you know what, man, we got to chop it up with James. I mean, it's just going to be what a big week, James. There's really the lead in is simple. It's Sam Ehlinger, brand new quarterback with a once in a lifetime opportunity, if I'm being honest, like a once in a lifetime. 6th-round draft picks don't really get shots like this very often. And I don't know. They say all the right things. He's done all the right things. Let's go, James. Where are you at with this, man?
I'll start with my reaction, man. I was pretty shocked by it. I thought there was a chance Sam Ehlinger would play this season if it continued how it was going. But even after last week, I was thinking, okay, Matt Ryan played pretty poorly. The 2 interceptions he had, I believe, were mainly his fault, just bad reads, bad decisions, although he was dealing with pressure. But they were 3-3-1. And Coach Frank Wright, after the game, he mentioned being 3-3-1, I believe 3 times in his post-game press conference. And he said, Matt is our guy, and less than 24 hours later, he wasn't the guy anymore. So I was very shocked by it. And I think I was more so shocked with, because this is how they could have framed it. We know that Matt Ryan now has a grade 2 shoulder separation, Zach. So obviously with that painful of an injury, his status is up in the air. He's going to be inactive for this week. But then we asked for clarification, like, hey, is this move for right now or is this for the season? They're like, the injury did not factor into the decision. This is Sam's team now. So as you said, it was definitely like something you see out of a movie. I mean, it's an incredible change of events for this franchise. And to me, they're in a unique position because on one hand, you just benched a guy who was playing poorly but led you to 3 game-winning drives and all 3 wins for a guy who hasn't thrown an NFL pass in the regular season. He's thrown as many passes as me and you, Zach. So
yeah, exactly.
That's crazy stuff.
I know, man. And to play devil's advocate a little bit here, James, I was kind of reading through some things and I'm looking down and I don't even know how I stumbled across this. And I'm looking down at like the NFL's leader in yards passed this year. Matt Ryan's number 4 in the NFL. He's 1 yard behind the number 3 passer in the NFL. Now, obviously, he's not played great. Obviously, there's been a lot to be desired. But you mentioned that earlier, 3 comebacks and really would have had a 4th comeback, if we would have made a 43-yard field goal. Mm-hmm. That offensive line hasn't done him any help, but I think at the very end of the day, the precursor was Jim Irsay walking out of there and getting on. He normally says a little something before he gets there on his golf cart and kind of rides off. There was no words from him, and I think sometimes you say the most when you say nothing at all, and I think he went into that office and he said, listen, it's my football team, and we're going to talk about it. But I got the feeling he told them that this is a one-man vote right here. This is a one-man vote.
This feels like, and there's a consensus around the league, not only just from our neck of the woods, just around the league, that Jim Irsay had a really big voice, obviously, in this decision. And, of course, he would have one. He's the owner. Yeah. And I just think it was fascinating because, again, you look at where this team is with Matt Ryan. Okay, you're 3-3-1, not great. But you look at where this team would be without Matt Ryan, and it's like, you don't know. You just do not know what this team's going to look like without Matt Ryan and with Sam Ehlinger in there. It would be great to say, here's his preseason stuff. This is who we know he'll be. But as you know, preseason is preseason. Teams barely scheme. You're not playing against – no disrespect to Sam Ehlinger, but he played really good. And he did what he's supposed to do. But he dominated guys who probably – a lot of them did not make NFL rosters. Yeah. And so that's the question mark. That's the unknown. And – I actually just finished up a piece about this, so you'll get the first, drop on it. But, I went around the locker room again today, and I really want to just hammer down how are these players feeling about this, and they are shocked. Yeah. This is not a decision that, I think they're taking it well. They're all backing Sam. They like Sam. I don't think there's anything to not like about Sam. You look at his backstory, what he's been through, how he's carried himself. He's a hell of a man. But these guys are shocked.
Yeah.
They are shocked. Paris Campbell, shocked. Jonathan Taylor, shocked. DeForest Buckner, shocked. Ryan Kelly, surprised. Shaquille Leonard, surprised. Like everyone used those words except for Sam Ehlinger, who shouldn't say those words because he's a starter now. You never want to say you're surprised about being in that position, but it is shocking. So I feel like we're at this point where they're in a position to either hand the keys to Sam, and if he balls out the rest of the way by some miracle, because make no mistake about it, it would be a miracle for a sixth-round pick to come out and really dominate in the NFL and kind of take this job as his own, or they come out and they're bad and they lose a bunch of games and they end up with the top 10 pick, and finally that chance to get a young quarterback and sort of stop this one-year Band-Aid, which I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Exactly. And I mean, we talked about it on the live stream last night, James. The worst case scenario for Sam Ehlinger is to go like 5-5. Like,
Yes.
because you get nothing from that and you get no draft pick. You're not in position, and all we can go off of is previous drafts and previous, years with Chris Ballard. And he has not been aggressive. Now, turns out might not have a choice when it comes down to it. Turns out might not even have a job if we're being 100% honest about that. But from what I've gotten and what I've gathered, it seems to be two guys are on a pretty hot seat, but I would think Frank is on a little bit hotter of a seat than Chris Ballard. Is that the sense you get around West 56 right now, that Chris is probably going to escape this somehow, some way, but Frank needs a really good next 10 games to be coaching in the National Football League next year, at least for
Yeah, at least for the Colts. I think that they're both on the hot seat. I kind of look at it as a joint deal. And it's because they were given a very unique hand with the Andrew Luck retirement right before the preseason. And obviously, we've seen how things have gone since then. But I do think that at some point, you get fed up. You're like, hey, why aren't we able to sustain anything? And I get it. Like, you tried. And
yeah,
quite frankly, they haven't lived up to a lot of the standards they've had in years past. Like, I get it. Matt Ryan is not the 4-time Pro Bowler he used to be, the first-team All-Pro that he once was, the former league MVP. I get all of those things.
Yeah.
However, to see this offensive line regress the way it has, and to see them struggle to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, who, quite honestly, might not even be a Pro Bowler this year after being All-Pro first team last year.
Yeah.
I think those are the things where I'm like, how do you, as a coach and GM, get from under that, or get another chance at that after being here for several years and it not going, your way? And Jim Irsay has been very vocal about a lot of things this season that he wanted to happen. Like, I want to come out and win the season opener. Didn't happen. I want to go down there and beat Jacksonville. Didn't happen. I want to beat Tennessee. Lose twice to them. So it seems like every time he's asking for something he wants, they can't deliver. And it's like, how long can you keep a job where you can't deliver? Again, they've been given a very unique, historic hand, quite frankly. I don't think anybody's ever had a future Hall of Famer, if he kept playing, retire right before the season starts and you have to kind of scramble. But, I mean, that was 3-4 years ago at this point. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. I do think that Sam offers a lot more mobility. Obviously, he's a different type of quarterback. He doesn't have a great arm either, though. I know Matt Ryan's arm was kind of waning a little bit in the last few years. But I do think that it's been sort of overstated. And it's not fair to Sam to say, like, okay, he's more mobile. This offensive line isn't that great. He'll be fine. He'll be able to escape and move. Like, he's not Lamar Jackson, okay? Like, he's not Kyler Murray. He's not these guys. I'm sure he offers a lot of good things, but, I mean, I'm just one of those guys where I have to see it against the best for me to believe in you. And I know he's a great person. Matt Ryan's a great person. He came and talked to us after he was benched, which he did not have to do. And I think that that's a part of it. But as we both know, Zach, like, it's about what you do on the field on Sundays. And, a couple months ago, Sam Ehlinger was saying, oh, I have 3 years to get ready and I don't have to worry about playing on Sundays. And, well, You got to worry about this Sunday, my friend.
Yeah, buckle up, kid. It's time to go out
It
there and
is.
show them what you got. James, one thing that I just can't kind of get out of my head is that, and you mentioned it earlier, and it's a great point. I mean, this offensive line, it didn't get better this week, right? Like it didn't just like miraculously all of a sudden, like, hey, Sam can move a little bit. Now he's not a cure-all to that. Like you still have to protect. There's still, premier athletes, tracking this quarterback down and trying to bring him to the ground. And at this point, you're this far in the season, cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows you've got a problem, and everybody knows where the problems are. And if we're being honest, it's up and down that offensive line to this point. I mean, it really, really is. Very rough situation to bring in Sam. I think they try to get him out on the perimeter, try to let him use his legs a little bit and use his mind, but still, he's got big shoes to fill. I'll say that. I'll say that for all the optimism, and this was a shot in the arm. There's no doubt about it. Everybody, we turned in a 24-hour cycle from, oh my gosh, like this season is just pretty much almost done to, hey, there's a little bit of hope. There's a little bit of, there's a little bit of newness in the air. But that being said, man, I mean, it's tough sledding for anybody. It's been tough sledding for, Matt Ryan, and especially a guy who's getting ready to start his very first game in the NFL.
Exactly. And I think a lot of fans are, again, maybe a little too excited for what's to come, because I look at it like this. Sam Ehlinger is the shiny new toy. Like he's got different, things he can do. You've never seen it before. You want to see what it's like. And then you might open that package up and start playing with it. And you're like, oh, this isn't as great as I thought. And that's no fault of his own. But I wrote it in a piece earlier this week when the news broke. This was not a, Aaron Rodgers situation, a Trey Lance situation where we draft this guy. We know he's going to be our guy and we're going to just stash him away and have him learn from another guy and come up. Like, no, he was drafted, quite honestly, probably with the intentions of being, not him personally, but like the teams, of being a career backup. Like that's what 6th-round picks, if they stick around, usually are. So I've heard the Tom Brady stuff, and if he ends up being Tom Brady, God bless him. But I mean, let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
And I do want to say that, to your point about, having big shoes to fill, other teams knowing that you guys are struggling with the offensive line, other teams like the Commanders, who are not that great, but they also might feel like this other team's going to start this new quarterback and really think that they're going to have a chance to win. And if you're a defensive player on the Commanders, you have to feel like there's blood in the water. We're going to give him his welcome to the NFL moment. He hasn't had it yet. He was electric during the preseason. Everyone's singing his praises. Everyone loves him. But the person that I am and the writer that I am, I'm waiting for the conflict. And we know it's going to happen. I'm not rooting against the Colts or rooting against the Commanders or any team. It's just we know that no game is perfect. He's not going to come out and, complete 30 of 30 passes and throw for 400 yards and not have any picks and, add on 2 touchdowns and have this video game type of. No, it's going to be hard. And I think that there is a sense of pride that the defense is going to have, the Commanders, that is, to kind of welcome him to the league and show him, no, it was easy against those guys, those 3rd stringers, 4th stringers, guys that are on rosters. We're the best. We're still the best players from where we come from, everywhere we've been. And, to the Colts' credit, they're trusting that this kid can get thrown in the fire and not get burned up. Now, they might say, I believe that they are doing whatever they can to prepare him. However, they're never going to say they're not like ready. You know what I mean? Like whenever we ask, what makes you think he's ready? What makes you think that he's the guy? And they're saying all the right things. But yeah. Zach, I need the conflict, because that's, to me, is going to show what this team is about, what Sam is about, what they can do when they have to problem solve. Because, I mean, everyone knows he can use his legs. So obviously they're going to try to force him to stay in the pocket and make decisions with an arm, again, that isn't like highly touted. So we'll see. But I will say, man, like this season just got some, I guess it's like part 2, I guess, or a new chapter for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, just to your point, you made a great point. I want to see what Sam Ellinger does when he throws that first pick, right? Like, how does he respond to that? Does he have that amnesia that all great quarterbacks have, where they're like, you know what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I've done this whole game. I'm going to come back and I'm going to keep playing my style of football, and I'm going to will this team to win a football game. Now, Frank Reich switching over was very adamant that we're not waving a white flag.
Yes, he was.
uh, that's I think Frank's definitely not waving the white flag, right? Like when you're fighting for your
No,
life to be a coach in the NFL, you're not waving a white flag, no matter what the ownership's thinking at this point. So, I, I mean, there's nobody rooting for Sam Ellinger to have a better 10-game stretch than Frank. If he wants to, have an opportunity to play, coach beyond this year. What's a reasonable expectation? How many games, in your opinion? I'm very curious. How many games does Sam have to win in this 10 games? You say 6-4, Frank keeps his job?
I don't know if it's that hot, so to speak, but I do think that there's got to be some promise, and there can't just be a complete cave. Like you cannot go, you know, 0-10 the rest of the way or 1-9 and feel good about your coaching situation, your GM situation. I do think that a lot is riding on this kid to potentially save their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of burden to carry when other things around the team haven't gone that well. Like I know the defense has played pretty well throughout the season, but they've struggled to get turnovers. They're missing one of their top guys, Shaquille Leonard, who hopes to come back this week, but hasn't been cleared yet, or there hasn't been any update on his status. Then you have, again, you mentioned earlier, you had a kicking situation that cost you a game earlier this year, and then last week you had, on top of the interceptions and the bad offense, you had Matt Hawk, who was, looked like he couldn't punt anymore all of a sudden.
God,
so
terrible.
It just seems like there's so many things where I know a lot will be made about the quarterback, and it should be. It's the most important position on the field. However, there's a lot of other things where you can look at, as a fan, as a player, as a writer, whatever, and be like, there's multiple things that this coaching staff has not been able to do to give us a chance to consistently win. And one thing I do want to say in regard to the waving the white flag comment that Frank Reich made, I know a few of our reporters, and we do it all the time, I'm guilty of it, we'll just tweet out whatever they say with like not always having the right context. Just for everyone listening, he was asked that question in that way. He was asked the white flag, phrase was used in the question. It wasn't like he just brought it up like, all right, let me tell them right now, like I'm not waving the white flag. No, he was phrased that way, and he vehemently denied it. And I think that's what he's supposed to do. That's what I would do in his situation. I had someone on Twitter tag me after I put up the entire, quote, the entire exchange. They're like, it sounds like someone trying to keep his job. Well, yes, that's what he's trying to do. Like, that's what anyone would try to do. Like, I do think that he was, there were some valid points to what he said about sometimes exceeding expectations with what they had and the cards they were dealt. However, if you're a coach, you're going to try to spin it, and especially Frank Reich, he's kind of known for this. He's going to try to find that positive angle, and I do think you have to publicly at least say those things, because you cannot go into a locker room full of veterans, some of which probably came here thinking that Matt Ryan was going to be the guy, and then tell him, oh, well, Sam's in and we're just punting on the season. That's not how it works at all. And so I'm excited to talk to a few more veterans. Like I haven't talked to Stephon Gilmore about how he feels. Not that he was saying anything explosive. It's just I'm genuinely curious as to, what happened and how do you guys feel? And again, there's this consensus around the locker room where we're gonna back Sam. He deserves this chance, and even I'll put it like this: deserves might be a strong word, but they feel like he's done enough to earn their trust, and I feel like he's taken the opportunity serious. Deserves is a word I feel like can kind of be editorialized. Like, am I saying he deserves it? Did somebody else saying deserve? I don't know, but all I know is he has it, and they're also feeling for another quarterback who, stood in there week after week. He did not play great. I will say that again. But man, like 2 weeks ago, he was the man. He had thrown a game-winning touchdown pass to Alec Pierce. He had set the franchise record for most completions with 42. He got drilled on the game-winning pass. Just to mention, like he got drilled in that game, and even though he wasn't sacked, he still got hit hard a lot of times, and he just kept coming back. So, one thing I do want to point out is Matt Ryan, all class, all pro when it comes to like
Yes.
facing the music, because I don't know if I would handle it as graciously as he did. I mean, we asked questions and gave him every opportunity, so to speak, to point the finger back at the franchise, and not even like, directly away from him, just like a little bit like, hey, this
Yeah.
isn't all on me. And he's the consummate pro. Hey, I wish I could have played better. I wish we could have played better. But he never deflected blame, and even told, said, hey, I love Sam. I'm going to be here for him. I'm going to help him. And this is the first time this guy has ever been on the bench in his career. And
Yeah.
so I know that hurts. I know that has to hurt, because he's coming here thinking this might be my last chance to get a Super Bowl, when in reality now, did we just see Matt Ryan throw his last pass?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
that's crazy, James, to think about. Like you talk about that 1 week turn of events, going from that pass to the end of the game to Alec Pierce, the crowd's going nuts, including me, out there. And then all of a sudden he's just gone. And I'll say this, and we'll get into some trade talk before we get you off here. But winning cures all, James. I know that much. You go out there and you win football games, and everybody's your best friend, and you lose football games, and somebody's going to answer, ultimately when it's said and done. Trade deadline. Colts have never really been, buyers or sellers, if we're being 100% honest. You expect to be more of the same. I think it's going to be a pretty vanilla, because you don't really know where you're at, right? Like, you don't really
yes,
know where you're at. You're 3-3-1. So, I mean, that's the other thing that makes this a little bit unique and weird, that you're pulling a guy out, when you're kind of still in the mix of all of this, in the heat of the battle in the season. What are your thoughts just initially on the trade deadline?
I think that it'll be fairly quiet to the for the reasons you said, and even Shaquille Leonard today was saying we're 3-3-1. That's the best record we've had through 7 games in a couple years here. So
Yeah.
it seems so doom and gloom, and I do think because you've handed the keys to Sam Ehlinger, you can't be huge sellers, because you don't want to deplete this team even more, and again just put on your season
Yeah.
and throw that in the face of the veterans on this team that are don't have a future to rebuild and stuff like that. And so I do think that they're going to be pretty reserved in the moves that they make. And then even when it comes to buyers, of course you would want to bring in maybe an offensive lineman, a left tackle, so to speak, or something like that. But I just don't think that they have the assets to really do so. And you don't want to give up too many assets either, because you want to, I mean, theoretically, if this season goes south, yes, you want that top 10 pick to draft a quarterback, but you also want your other picks as well, to make sure you can kind of bolster other spots on your roster and get younger in those spots too. Because, I mean, quite honestly, it seems like a couple of these guys, are getting older. I know Shaquille Leonard is, 26, and Quentin Nelson is got the big contract, and these things add up money wise. So you know how it is in any sport. You want to try to reload with players who can get really good really fast, whether
Yeah.
they're really cheap, and you get another crack at trying to be special. So I think it'll be pretty reserved, pretty simple, just because they're not 1-6, 0-7, those types of things. And we'll see, man, because I just think ideally, and I know we heard all the chatter before the season, like Odell Beckham Jr. He's not coming here to play with Sam Ehlinger. Like,
No.
I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So again, I just think that there's limited, resources when it comes to free agency, even with unsigned guys right now, and obviously making trades. And I think it's now just, plug Sam Ehlinger in, swap Matt Ryan out, and see where the chips fall. And if I'm being completely honest, I think this season is going to get rough, just because Sam Ehlinger has not had the experience, and to expect him to come in, like you said, and fix everything with this offense is unfair to him, just because there's so much going wrong with it. I mean, again, Jonathan Taylor, we haven't really seen him be Jonathan Taylor since week 1. I mean, I'll ask you, after week 1, did you think he was like, okay, he's getting the rushing title crown again?
I thought, here we go. I mean, like we are literally picking up where we left off last year. No problem at all. Everything looked fine. And then it's just, he had the ankle injury, and then this O line just, man, they just went downhill. And I mean downhill fast. you know, they can't pass block, they can't run block. Even the players, I think the thing that's been most frustrating to me this year, especially in the offensive side of the ball, is players that are typically very, very good and very, very steady and solid for us. Quentin Nelson has not been Quentin Nelson,
No.
not the one that I've seen. Quentin Nelson's not getting thrown around by anybody, in previous years. You got to wonder if there's, some of these surgeries that he's had every single offseason for the past couple of years are starting to add up. I just don't know. I mean, I really don't. I'm a little surprised that if they were going to make any move coaching wise in season, that they didn't maybe move on from the O-line coach, maybe.
That's what I thought the news would be before something as drastic as Sam Ehlinger. I thought Chris Strasser, I thought he was done. I thought he was how he'd be gone, and everyone would kind of understand that makes sense. But yeah, he's got a job still, and then now it's Sam Ehlinger going in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, great point.
Pretty bad. I mean, but also, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, one of the strong suits last year, we let some pretty significant turnover go away from our team. We had Chris Reed last year, who was a very reliable guy. Mark Lewinsky was a starter for us for the previous 4 years. And man, oh man, what we wouldn't do to have just somebody steady in there, to kind of, glue that offensive unit together. Who knows, man? I mean, who knows? Maybe, we have a 30 for 30, we look down the road, 20 years from now, and the kid from Texas who came out, out of nowhere, a 6th-round draft pick, and just, took the world by storm. I'd say Colts Nation, temper expectations, and be fair to him. He is just now starting. And it's not like James, with Sam, it's not like he had the whole offseason to prepare for this, and he knew this was going to be how it was going to go. And sometimes you never know how it's going to go. But that being said, what are you looking for before we get off here? What are you looking for out of this Colts team against a Commanders team? It's a winnable football game at home, right? Like, it's still a winnable football game. What do you need to see to be like, all right, maybe we can string something together here down the stretch?
I think we got to see some pop, some spark, some fire, something to galvanize this team. I think this is something that, just throughout sports, whenever you insert a guy, the next man up mentality, yes, it's a cliche, but this is literally it. And I think that you can, get some extra juice from that and, give yourself a chance to win. That's my thing. Like, it might not be pretty, and quite honestly, it hasn't been pretty for the Colts all season with their wins, but I think that you have to be able to look back on this game, win or lose, and say you were in it. Like, you don't want to come out and get blown out by a team that is not good, or get manhandled by a team that isn't good. Lose a game against a team like last week where they didn't even score an offensive touchdown. Like, that can't happen, in my opinion. So I'll look for that. And I also want to see how, like you said, how Sam Ehlinger responds to the adversity, whether it's a pick, whether it's a sack, whether it's, just any type of mistake that might be made. How do you respond to it? And I will say this, and I'll plug Zach Kiefer's story. He wrote an incredible story about Sam during last year's training camp about, losing his dad, losing his brother. So the guy has been through some really hard stuff in his life, and to my knowledge has come out on the other side as a great human being, a great man. So if you want someone to root for, he's that type of guy. I think personally, I can't root for a team, but I root for the human. He's a good human. He's been through a lot of things, carries himself very well. And I think that, as much as we will harp on completion percentage and touchdowns and moving the offense, part of me is also like, this kid who's been through so much is getting his shot to live out his dream. And
Yes.
So, I never want to lose that part of it either, because I'm like, that's a pretty big moment for him in his career. I know he'll downplay it. And I plan on asking him maybe, later on, but just when will he have that time to sort of, whether it's before the game, after the game, like soak it in, like, wow, I really, had a chance, at least got a shot, because he might look back. Who knows, Zach? We might look back in 20 years and be like, wow, that was the Sam Ehlinger experiment and it just never works out. But like for him, that could be like, looking back and tell your grandkids, hey, at one
Yeah.
point in time, I was starting for the franchise that had Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, as quarterback. So
Yeah.
we'll see. It's going to be exciting. And like I said, for the Colts fans who might have been struggling to watch, you got to tune back in now, man.
Yeah, man, they roped them back in. I'll tell you what, I'll be sitting in section 402, row 19, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to look for, James. I'm going to be looking for a maniac this weekend,
Yeah.
man. That's what I want to see on the field. And, you're new to the beat this year. I'm telling you, if you ever get a chance, if he ever comes back and he's 90% of who he has been, that guy is fun to cover in the NFL. And I mean, the passion from him, the way that he just like controls that defensive side, he's just a ball magnet. And when he plays and he's healthy, I'm telling you right now, it's unlike anything you'll ever see. I mean, he is just a very, very fun guy when we talk about one Shaquille Leonard. And I hope this season, if nothing else, I hope James Boyd gets to cover the healthy version of Shaq Leonard on the field. And you get to see that very first time that he's screaming with his helmet off all the way down in the end zone after he just made a big play. That's what I'm looking for, man.
We'll see. I mean, he sounds like he's ready, and it sounds like the team is protecting him from himself. But, he says he's running out of patience. He's practiced the last few weeks. I'll say this here. I would be surprised if he didn't play this upcoming Sunday, just because, from what I understand, he probably could have played this past week, but it was more like, okay, just give him some more time to get ready. But, he's champing at the bit to get back out there. And he feels like, and I wrote about this in one of my stories that'll get posted soon, he feels like, and it's not any fault of his own, really, because injuries happen, but he feels like he hasn't pulled his weight this season, and that weighs on him because he cares so much and he wants to be out there so much. Like, as much as this is Sam Ehlinger's start, like, he wants to be out there to help him. Like, if I can get a takeaway, if I can get a pick, if I can get a sack or get them off the field and get you better field position, he wants to do whatever he can to help Sam Ehlinger win. And I think that, that's a guy who, yeah, like you said, everyone has said he's a beast. And with every great athlete I've had a chance to cover in person, it is definitely a greater experience when you see it, live in front of you. Like I've seen Shaquille Leonard highlights, on TV, but it's different when you see it in person. Like when I was last year, when I saw Steph Curry in person play the Pacers, and I saw LeBron in person, like it's different when you see it in person. And sure, by all means, Shaquille Leonard is on. Make no mistake about it. When he stays healthy going forward, he's on a Hall of Fame type of trajectory. I mean, the guy has been first team All-Pro 3 times, and this season has been kind of rough. But if, like you said, if he can come back and be any part of that guy, yeah, that'll be pretty exciting. And we'll see. I mean, again, that's another layer to this season that seems to be just, a crapshoot every week. If I'm being honest, you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, never a dull moment on the beat, never a dull moment on this podcast. And guys, you've always given us great feedback when James comes on. It's been fun doing this one again. I'm Zach Boyd. He is James Boyd, and we are definitely out. Much love, Colts Nation.